Hello Africa, and welcome to the CNBC Africa Digital Special. Today we're talking to Ladislas Agbesi, the founder of the Pan-African Business Forum. He's telling us about a special $500 billion African fund that he's planning to set up on the African continent. Can you please elaborate for us more on how and why you want to set this up?
Yeah, I remember most of the time when this issue of the 500 billion US dollars come, I'm sure you yourself you'll be asking, is this man dreaming? What is he talking about? And,
exactly my point.
But let's go back to the context. Why this thing? You know, the continent has been have progressed, as we said. The public debts with many of the African countries has been better than it used before. More than 50% of African countries, they are public debts, and the budget deficit is a little bit better today. And if you look at today, since 2004, the Africa is still in the trade surplus than it used to be before 2004. Apart from 2007, 2009, or some of the difficulties. I want to give you the context before we come to the fund. If you look at where we are getting it today, in terms of, we said that we have projected our GDP in 29.5 trillion ahead of America and Europe in the next 30 years by 2050. And we look at there is a pattern of regional integration. The continent needs close to 500 billion investment into the infrastructure to reach that level. And we're talking about in the next 30 years, you see that our healthcare, today we are talking about the healthcare project as we stand today is close to 260 billion. And which will grow to close to 2.5 trillion in the next 30 years by 2050. And those things are very indicative that when you look at that one, today we have 1 million nurses, which will grow to 11 million nurses in the next by 2050. And you have the physician, like the normal GP doctors in the continent, 200,000, which are going to grow to close to 4 million. And if you come to the education sector, you see that the teachers are going to grow to close to 11 million teachers in the next 20 years. So, and by 2050, we will have the 2 billion population, which is well educated, where healthcare is going to be achieved in most of the. How do we get there? Now, the biggest problem that is that the IMF have changed his shifts. The last 20 years or 15 years, they are, in terms of investing in a continent, have shifted. It reduced from 10 to 15% in terms of what they allocate to the African countries. So we need to look at that gap. For us to be able to reach that level, we need also to be able to look at the way certain kind of other countries. People don't talk about a country, how the Africans do. In 1983, 85, Ethiopia was the famine was there. There was no food. People were dying. But today is the 4th biggest economy. Not only about resources, not about mineral resources. In the next 25 years, Nigeria is going to be the 4th biggest economy in the world. Today, they consume 1.6 million ton of steel. And in the next, by 2050, they will be reaching 125 million of steel for the it means that there is a lot of capacity in the continent. How do we come to that one? We have competition with any other continent. So what we said is that we need to have resources to align ourselves with those kind of investment. What we did was that we came up with what we call African Solidarity Fund. And we are talking to 2 institutions like Mugabe, which we are talking to be the father of the umbrella of that fund for us, which the discussion are still on. How it's very simple. What we did was that we look at all the areas. If you have to wait for the minerals to come out, for agriculture to come out, we may find ourselves to still continue begging the other foreign direct investors coming from outside, which like China, because with China today, they have a deficit balance in terms of what they invest here, what they get from these countries here. So you cannot compete with them, expecting them to compete with you to grow your business. So what we did was that in that fund, we centralized the fund into $1 per every civil servant in each country. And in West Africa, we put the headquarters of that fund in Nigeria. In East Africa, we put it in Kenya. In SADC, we put it in South Africa. And in North Africa, we put it in Egypt. What we did was that we are passing that solidarity fund with $1, which is called $1, which each and every one part of the civil servant will participate to grow this continent. That fund is going to go to a special in-clearinghouse fund in West Africa, whereby we are going to discuss with the African Union. That's why we are calling on President Mugabe as the old statesman to lead that motion at the African Union to pass that law. And what we are going to do is that we are going to work with 3 institutions, which are Pan-African banks, like EcoBank, South African banks, and we are going to leverage on those one first. We start with the civil servants. And if you look at in that paradigms, the way we are doing it, the first 5 years are going to be the years where we are going to be started dealing with the fund. And the first 5 years, we are already in some kind of excess of 10 to 20 billion in terms of if we are saying it. So what we are trying to do, the next stage for us is to call fund managers from all over the world to sit down, to rearrange that fund under the African Union. Because African Union can never be strong if they don't have their own funds.
Is this the major differentiator between you and other funding institutions?
Definitely.
Such as the African Development Bank, or do you have other differences?
Definitely. The difference between us is a fund from Africans for Africans. It's not a fund from outside. The African Development Bank have funds from all other multinationals, and which they will be borrowing that fund for certain kind of interest, which depend on how they look at the criteria of each country. But this special fund is under the umbrella of African Union, which you will tailor all the problem of the African country in terms of infrastructure. We are talking about infrastructure from Cairo to Egypt. You think that somebody else will give us money to do that? The money with African Development Bank is the money of the other institution. If they don't veto it, you cannot invest into it. So this is a fund which will belong to Africans through the African Union. But the African Union need to enforce it so that we have a population reach. We are getting to 2 billion. It means more money for the pension funds, more money for the solidarity fund.
Is Africa ready for funding of this nature? And how is the response from other governments, other African governments, when it comes to this? Because you know in Africa there are also issues of accountability and corruption.
What we did was that we've already, since a couple of many years ago, we've been discussing about this thing. The former president of Senegal and some of our team spoke to some of them. What we realized is that we already did the stock of each of the civil servants each country. When President Obasanjo was already there in Nigeria and Ethiopia and all those kind of things. What we are not going to run it. We are going to put institutions in place which will really collect those funds on behalf of the African Union, the Africa Solidarity Fund. The accountability, there's nothing to worry about that, because we are bringing strong institutions from over the world to manage it on our behalf. That's why we are talking about partnership. A partnership is there's one institution which we are talking about with some of our colleagues from Ghana with the Goldman Sachs, and some of the other institutions which are going to be part and parcel of the technical team in terms of setting up this fund in place.
Ladislas, thank you for coming through to CNBCAfrica.com. We wish you all the best in your journey.
Thank you.
That's Ladislas Agbesi telling us about the $500 billion African fund that he's planning on setting up. I'm Aviwe Mtila for CNBCAfrica.com. Goodbye.